Described whistleblowing website Wikileaks and its founder, sometimes called the Robin Hood of hacking. I talked to Julian Assange today from London about just what many argue is a misguided mission.
For us, it's actually just business as usual. I mean, we are a source protection organization that specializes in protecting confidential sources who have information of public significance, getting it out to the public and making an impact that does justice to the risks done by those people. That said, of course, we can look at this information another way. What is the sort of human rights or policy significance that it has? This is an archive of 91,000 documents about the war, not just any documents, but documents that specify which military unit was involved, where the action occurred, when it occurred, how many people died, friendlies, enemy forces, and civilians, although the report is just not always internally accurate about that information. And it is, in fact, the raw ingredients that the Pentagon uses to monitor the progress of the war, both statistically and in terms of individual cases.
To that very point, it's raw intelligence. Senator John Kerry, formerly an anti-war critic, of course, during Vietnam, said this is not the Pentagon Papers. This is not analysis at a senior level. It's raw data. And with all of this raw intelligence, there's a lot that's accurate, a lot that's not accurate. It's just a vacuum cleaner approach. Does that concern you at all? It certainly concerns the officials in Washington.
Well, you know, whenever we release material exposing embarrassing actions or abuses or crimes by an organization, there's always an attempt to underplay it or distract from the message. No, we believe, in fact, that the strength of this material is that it's from people on the ground. It was lodged and filed before there was a chance to massage this information at a sort of higher, more political level. When we look at analysis, of course, there's no reason to believe that analysis is more accurate. In fact, there's good reasons to believe that analysis tends to be less accurate because it is further removed from the base evidence. And what we have here is a compendium of 91,000 reports on the events that internally the US military considered significant.
Robert Gibbs at the White House and others at the Pentagon, Robert Gates, have said that this has the potential to harm U.S. service people. Does that concern you?
Well, anything in theory has the potential to harm anything else. But we have looked at this material for some months now together with our media partners. We have taken some steps to understand that the material is all at least 7 months old, so it is not of any sort of a tactical significance. Our primary concern with people being potentially harmed was to do with Afghan informants who could have been under the risk of retributive action. That is why we have held back some 15,000 reports for a more detailed review.
There is, of course, a lot of questions about your view toward the war. You were quoted in Der Spiegel as saying that you enjoy crushing bastards. Is that an accurate reflection of your attitude towards the establishment, towards the people running the war, towards the U.S. government?
Well, Wikileaks is a publication by the Sunshine Press. We're an organization of many people. I am the editor-in-chief of Wikileaks. So what was being quoted in Der Spiegel was a personal profile of me. And like many journalists, I enjoy a sort of intellectual combat, but I don't enjoy exposing the powerless. I don't enjoy exposing the innocent. I enjoy exposing people who abuse the powerless and the innocent, and many police officers also are of that same position, that we respond to victims and we set about to bring justice to them and their families.
Mr. Assange, I'm intrigued by the relationship between you and the traditional non-advocacy media here, because you work in a space that you have created on your own, but at the same time you worked through the New York Times, Der Spiegel. You were giving this to The Guardian, to other news, more traditional news organizations. How do you see that relationship?
Well, I wouldn't say traditional news organizations. Let us say established news organizations. We are a startup. We've been going some 3.5 or 4 years in our publishing efforts, and we've specialized in a particular area of the world which we thought needed some attention, which is the protection of sources through using the latest technical and legal means. Now, in this coalition that we put together involving Der Spiegel, The Guardian, and the New York Times, together with our own staff, we have seen not only a very good and an effective collaboration on this matter, but everyone keeping each other honest. You know, this wasn't the case where one media organization had the data and decided to pick its own political angle and go off and run with that, to pick just a few cherries from this whistleblower or whistleblowers disclosure. Rather, this was US press, the New York Times, coming for its own particular angle, The Guardian as the most prestigious paper in the UK coming from its angle, the same with Der Spiegel, the great German weekly news magazine, and us coming from a transparency and disclosure angle, trying to get the lot out where we can to the public. And that has really kept the journalism involved in this investigation honest. Now, that said, across all the journalists engaged in this research, we have probably read in detail only 2,000 of the reports out of the 91,000. So what we really need now is for other journalists from differing countries and for US servicemen involved in these procedures to read and understand the rest of the material. Over the coming days, we will release the system that we used internally across 3 of those media organizations to mine through this data and understand it. And we want those people who are in the best position to understand what went on to try and explain to us and the world community what these events were really about. Not just the abusive events that occurred from the US military, but the attacks by the Taliban and the IEDs that have killed civilians. So we calculated that some 2,000 civilians had been killed between 2004 and 2010 by IEDs as represented in this material.
What can you tell us about Bradley Manning? Because a lot of speculation is now centered on him. He's already been targeted and accused of a previous leak to you, and there's growing speculation that he was behind this.
Well, we don't know who our sources are. Generally, it's very rare. Our system is set up, in fact, to conceal even from us the identities or location information.
But you're certainly aware of the service member of the service member who has in fact been imprisoned because of a previous leak to you.
Yes, in fact, it appears on the surface that Bradley Manning is the most significant political prisoner that the United States had, a 22-year-old intelligence analyst who was in Baghdad, shipped to Kuwait when an allegation emerged that he was the source behind our collateral murder video, the video which exposed the shootings of 2 Reuters journalists and between 16 and 24 other people in Baghdad in 2007. His case deserves to be watched and deserves scrutiny. Why isn't Bradley Manning on the continental territory of the United States? Is Bradley Manning effectively like a Guantanamo detainee, a soldier shipped to a third country away from effective legal support and away from effective press representation?
What would you want the outcome of this leak to be? Is your agenda to be against the war, and do you want to create the pressure for the U.S. officials, for members of Congress, for the American public to take a closer look at the war strategy?
What we want from this is justice and understanding. But before justice can come, understanding must come. And that means people should not just be going from what their initial biases and presumptions are about the war in Afghanistan, either on the left or the right. Rather, they should be looking at this material and understanding what is actually happening on the ground. How is this war going on? How is it harmful? And what are the good aspects? Although it's hard to actually see many.
And what do you say to those in the White House and the Pentagon and some on the Hill who say that this is old information, not really terribly revealing in full, and that it basically violates important intelligence and secrecy provisions that are needed to protect U.S. troops?
Yeah, well, you can't have it both ways. The information is either relevant or it is not relevant.